here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the New Zealand musician David Kilgour, who I spoke to very recently to find out more about life, love, poetry and all the other groovy stuff. Was in the band The Clean, who have had a book just published about them, which is worth checking out. I will put a link in the notes below. If you get a chance, do buy it. But this is the interview with David. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to the exciting subject of the early formative years. David, it's over to you.
Perhaps my first true love was Jimi Hendrix as a young kid, actually, perhaps. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if that was an awakening, but, Hamish and I were just crazy about music anyway from, young kids. Not that we were playing music, well, not that we were playing music, but... we lived through the similar things you lived through as a teenager, I'm sure, the same sort of music. Well, Hamish especially, the whole glam thing. And, all that got down here eventually.
Yes.
Probably had pretty similar experiences to what you were having, I suppose.
Well, I suppose we sort of had the tail end of the 60s, which you can't really remember much about, and probably sort of got a bit confused with the early 70s, to be honest, watching like the Beatles films. And then there was things like the Monkees as well, which was very excitable and exciting. And then we had the Banana Splits, which wasn't really a pop band at all, but it had a great theme song, which kind of stimulated our excitement and adrenaline glands. So that all sort of made a difference. Were your parents at all, interested in music or art at all?
I remember all those Banana Splits. The intro to that was so much better than the actual show. It was always so annoying.
Yes, it was. It was just a great start, actually. So, but
what's the question again? Sorry to interrupt.
I was saying about your parents. Were they at all of a musical kind of? Yes. Did they have any cultural music in their life?
Piano and sing, and she did a little bit of theatre. But she liked to sing and play piano. So, yes, she was definitely... And she was quite a creative person. She liked to draw. She was a good drawer. And, so a lot of probably does come from her. And she, encouraged us to, draw and, make music, be creative as well.
And when you were sort of... What city or town did you grow up in? Was that, or were you in the countryside?
We moved around a bit. Started out in the country, a country town, almost like desert-like surroundings, really, called Ranfurly.
Right.
Not far from Dunedin. And then we, at about like 5 or 6, we moved to a farm, my grandmother's farm, further north. There for like 4 or 5 years. Then we moved to Dunedin as teenagers.
Right, yes. And what was Dunedin like?
Boys, really. Mm.
Yes. What was Dunedin like, by the way?
Very sleepy. Back then in the 70s, it was quite sleepy. The 60s definitely made an effect here. It had an effect here. The 50s and the 60s, youth culture and all those cultural upheavals definitely made it down here to New Zealand, but it was sort of filtered through a pretty hard-nosed rugby, racing and beer kind of post-war male society, I suppose. But, they didn't hit here. It did affect us here.
Yeah.
Now I've forgotten what your question was.
Yes, what was the city of Dunedin like? Because obviously...
Yes, it was pretty sleepy. But, hotels closed at like 10 p.m. at night. All the shops were closed on Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday, everything's just shut down. Just odd things like that, And, we're at the bottom of the world down here. We're all the way away anywhere, really. But like I say, even back then, stuff got through to us.
Well, yes. Well, it's interesting because things used to definitely shut on a Sunday. But actually, I know from the local towns, because I came from a village in the countryside. Places would close between 1 and 2, even banks. And they didn't open until they opened quite late and were closed for an hour at lunchtime and then sort of closed again at 3. So, yes, you had to sort of time your sort of moments to try and find these places, or at least get through the door before they closed again. So it was very different during the 70s, one has to say.
We did have to search out stuff, though. It wasn't, things like records and access to certain magazines, like perhaps music magazines. We had to search that stuff out. It could be found, but, to find something, an unusual record that perhaps wasn't stored in your local, record store, you had to search stuff
Yes.
out. There's a lot of that going on.
And the other thing that we were very fascinated by during the 60s, and for me the 70s especially, was the chart show, which would come out on a Sunday afternoon, evening, and then obviously Top of the Pops on a Thursday. But it was always the fact that music didn't move very quickly. It would go in at number 30 and then creep up 5 places and then keep crawling up. So records would be in one's consciousness for quite a period of time. They didn't just go straight in at number 2 and then come straight out again. Did you also have a similar kind of charts to get excited and look forward to?
Yes, we did have a similar show here called, we had a few over the years, but the main one was called Ready to Roll. But, all top 20 stuff,
Yes.
good and bad, really. But yeah, we had one. I mean, it was something we checked out for sure, but it was also something you could react against as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were at school, were you a keen and enthusiastic student? Did you sort of enjoy that?
No, I didn't like school. I could pass my exams and stuff, but no, I didn't like it. I couldn't get out of there quick enough, actually.
Right.
I didn't actually seriously start playing music seriously until I was about 17. So,
Right. And who was the first one to sort of get an instrument? Was it you or Hamish?
um, it's a good question. That was Hamish, I think. Yes, it was Hamish. He bought an electric guitar, I think, and he gave up pretty much straight away. And then I picked it up, and then I gave up, I think. And then he bought a drum kit. He bought a drum kit a wee bit later. Sort of post-punk period. He bought a drum kit, and then yeah.
Yes. And were you, when you left school at 17, I mean, did you sort of have to have go to college, apprenticeship, job, unemployment? Which was your path in life at that stage?
Well, our parents always encouraged us to have a career and to study, go to university. And I figured I went to art school actually. I left school, I went to art school for about 6 months and then quit that. And then we, started up the band and moved out of town, moved north.
Right. God, this was it. So what was
So,
it like? Because during the 70s, I mean, obviously San Francisco or California, they had that, I don't know, Laurel Canyon, didn't they? The singer-songwriter. In the UK, there was prog rock and heavy metal. There was obviously glam rock, and it was a few years later punk started to appear. I mean, what was your sort of musical moments during the 70s?
well, all that stuff. Hamish brought, the Bowie records home. We initially were pretty much just, I'd say about 1970, early 70s. All I was interested really in was Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones, really. But
Right.
because of those two acts, I found out a lot of other stuff. But Hamish brought home stuff like, Aladdin Sane, and later on I understood Bowie and loved the Berlin period. So we bought all those records and all the post-punk new wave stuff, the Iggy Pop albums, all that stuff.
Yes.
Out of it stuff. We would get the NME like 3 months later down here. We'd get it shipped down here, but it would take 3 months to get here. So we devoured all that.
Yeah.
And
And with your Stones, was it Mick Taylor or Brian Jones period that you were particularly fond of?
I'd have to say Brian Jones, but I love both. Yes, I love both periods. But the Brian Jones one, if I had to pick, yes, I'd pick the Brian Jones period.
Right. So let it bleed and Exile, you
I love all
know.
that. I
You
love all that
do.
stuff.
Because I always thought the Mick Taylor years just were like, God, they were good. They were
Yeah, I love
really.
it. It's pretty hard to pick, but I do love that period, the Mick Taylor period. Absolutely.
Yes.
They were never really the same after he left.
No, no. I mean, Ronnie just didn't quite give it that magic. But what was your sort of first gig you went to? Can you remember who you went to see live to begin with?
I think it was Chuck Berry, believe it or not. Hamish took me to a Chuck Berry concert.
Nice.
Yeah.
Had he released My Ding-a-Ling at that stage?
Yes, that had been a big hit just previously to him coming, actually.
Yes.
And,
And
he picked up a New Zealand band. It was a New Zealand band backing him. So he did all the Chuck Berry stuff. And I was about
classic.
14 when I saw that, I think.
I mean, actually, now we look at it and you think, wow, I saw Chuck Berry. And I mean, Keith loved Chuck Berry, didn't he? So,
Well, I love
yes.
Chuck. By that stage, I loved Chuck Berry, of course, because of the Stones.
Well,
But
absolutely.
yeah, it was a great treat. I mean, looking back, and I didn't realise it at the time. Like, that's quite a first big gig to go to, Chuck Berry. It's like a good place to start.
Perfect, actually. And you probably thought, God, this guy's so ancient. He was probably only 40 or something.
It looked great.
Yes, at the time. And did you have any kind of local musical heroes in Dunedin?
Well, the Enemy, who were kind of our friends, they were kind of heroes because we like their music, and I really like the guitarist in the band. I guess that would be at the time. It would be one of the local heroes, I suppose.
The local.
Generally at that in the 70s in New Zealand, the whole pub scene was covers bands, and covers bands even touring New Zealand. Covering other people's music. There wasn't a lot of New Zealand acts touring with their own music, apart from people like Split Enz, perhaps.
Yes. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that's quite strange. Was Chris Knox from the Enemy? Was
Yes.
he sort of the go-to guy for or was he the person that people looked up to at this stage?
But not at that stage. He was just a friend, I guess, at that stage. A very creative friend. To look, I guess, as a youngster, perhaps I did look up to him. He's definitely taught me how to tune a guitar.
Right, which is
That's
always
impressive.
yes. So, what was the early lineup of the Clean, by the way? What
It was
was?
me and Hamish and an old friend, Peter Gutteridge, who went on to form Snapper, and he was in the Great Unwashed as well.
And at this stage, Hamish was on guitar, you on drums.
No, Hamish on drums, me on guitar. Yeah.
Right, and there you go. And were you still in Dunedin at that stage, or had you sort of
Yes.
relocated?
No, we were
Yes.
in Dunedin all the time. We did go to Auckland for a few months to try and break it up there, but came back.
Yes. So then, because it's kind of interesting, we had the punk period, then there was that post-punk world. Then the 80s in this country, it was quite a charged period because we'd got Thatcher came in, and then we had the Falkland War and the miners' strike. It was all things, I mean, they don't sound like a lot now, but at the time it certainly made people take sides and get very
The poll tax, I remember that, the poll tax as well.
the poll tax started to make people
Yes, I
very
remember all that period. Yeah. I
yes.
went through England a few times during that period, but I remember all that. I remember seeing Margaret Thatcher in the street, actually.
Did you? Gosh. Yeah, the Iron Lady, as we like to call her, is something. But New Zealand, though, you also had your political, prime minister, which was difficult, I guess. And also you had the South African, was it Springboks tour as well, which started to...
Yes, that was a major upheaval at the time. That was a major shift in the culture during that period. Yeah.
Yes.
I think
And
during that period, the country realised that there were two countries here. There was the left and there was the right, and there really was a divide. But yeah, it was interesting.
yeah. And then with the band, by then, 80, 81, you'd got yourself a solid lineup and sort of committed members, I would imagine at this stage. When
Yes.
did Flying Nun Records come onto the scene with you?
About 1980, they started up. Yeah.
And then was it the case that it was because of the Clean that was why Roger started it?
I think it was one of the main reasons. I don't know if it was all the reasons. He might have been vaguely thinking about it, but it definitely helped motivate them to actually do something about it. Yeah.
Yes. So what was the first time you went into the studio? Was that to record was it Tally Ho, or had you been in the studio before then?
We've been recording ourselves for a while, but yeah, Tally Ho was the first time we ever went into a studio, although it really was just someone's lounge and his control room set up in his kitchen. So, but it was the first it was an 8-track studio, so I guess, yeah,
Yes.
it
And
was a
when
studio.
so as sort of the 80s started to progress, I mean, obviously we had that moment, which was 83, when the Smiths appeared in our lives. And I thought that created a definite moment and a scene to say, right, this is going to be a chapter of music for the 80s. And everything that they did, release-wise, singles, albums, tours, was kind of significant. What was it like in New Zealand at that point? Had a scene developed?
Oh, by the 80s, oh, definitely. I mean, there's always been scenes here going back to even the 50s as far as music goes. But oh, definitely, yeah, yeah. There was all that going on here in our own little New Zealand way, yeah, for sure.
Yes. So when you
And I
did,
mean, bands like at the time too, that post-punk, post-new wave thing, which REM and the Smiths came after all that. Really, it was encouraging because both bands were. It was just straight pop music,
yes,
encouraging after what had gone down previously. And I mean, we were 60s freaks too. We grew up during the 60s. I mean, those guys are products, and you are too, of that period. So, there's were commonalities there, and it was really encouraging that period.
yes. Had you sort of embraced the Birds as well as the Velvet
Oh, yeah,
Underground?
we loved all that stuff. All the 60s, 50s stuff, all that iconic stuff, all of it. Loved it
Yeah.
all, assessed it all. Still listen to all that stuff.
Well,
Still
yes.
finding out, still finding music, from that period that I love, yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. I'm sort of each decade, I still keep finding bands that I missed the first time. Even, I mean, I thought I knew the 80s quite well, but it turned out I had absolutely sort of, even though that was my decade, I'd realized I only merely scratched the surface, because it was very tribal. Music had different tribes, and you sort of
Yes.
picked your tribe, and that meant also the soundtrack to it as well. And you didn't wander into suddenly some other scene just because you thought it was quite good music. You just went, no, that's not mine. And now I look back, and it's one of the things I would say I slightly regret, is being so uptight about sticking to one type of music or one
I
scene.
think it was pretty much the same, but I think, now that I'm older and I look back, I see other people, or observe other people, is that it's very much a youth thing, that tribal thing. After you've left school or whatever, but you want to be in your tribe, your group. As people
Yes.
get older, that becomes less and less, apparent in your life. But there's a period there where you really want to be around people and your friends and doing stuff and doing your things that you do, all that stuff. Yeah, like you just said. Mm.
Well, cool. So when Tally Ho came out, was the next kind of session in the studio, was that Great Great Sounds Great?
The next thing was Boodle Boodle Boodle. We did that in Auckland with our friends Chris Knox and Doug Hood. They had a 4-track TAC, and we recorded that on a 4-track in a little hall in Auckland.
Right. Featuring Billy Two, Thumbs Off, Anything Could Happen,
Yes.
with the sort of B-side of Sad Eyed Lady
Yeah,
and Point Out.
we were really disappointed with the recording of Tally Ho, although we did put it out. But so it was refreshing to go and make Boodle the way we wanted to make it. Yeah.
Yes, because what I found doing these kind of shows and interviews and stuff is that most bands do have a little bit of I would say a 5-year narrative in the UK, especially. They'd have a single would come out, John Peel would give it a play, then they'd get the John Peel session at Maid of Vale Studio, often produced by the one and only Dale Griffin, who was the drummer of Mott the Hoople, and then the album would come out. And the UK is very tiny, as you could imagine, so every city and town would have an alternative indie night. So the transit van would appear, and everyone would pile into it, and they'd go around this little circuit playing in front of like 200 people. And then the second album, was a bit bigger, and the bus, the transit van was replaced with a bus, and things were getting even better. But by the third album and 5 years, bands were
The
starting to
difficult thing.
bands were getting a little bit frazzled and a bit frailed, and people were sort of wanting to know, A, we're still broke, and B, our relationships are getting a bit strained. I mean, what was it like with the Clean at this stage?
Well, it took us, I suppose, it took Hamish and I probably 3 years to get to the point where we made Tally Ho, and then we had that success for full-on success for about 2 years. We're here in New Zealand anyway. Everything charted and things were going well, making good money. And then we split. And I think looking back, I was just a bit worn out. We've been at it for a while. Yeah, but hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Well, it is, and then because that's quite unusual, isn't it, to sort of split that early? I mean, what did you do when you decided, you left the band? Was that 84?
Well, like you say, it probably was that third, though we never made albums, but it probably was that third LP syndrome. Like, and everyone starts thinking, oh, maybe I could make a solo album, or, maybe I could find a better drummer than you, and all the second guessing which goes on, which is always completely wrong, generally. But I think maybe that was my third LP period. I don't know. I was just a bit tired. I wanted to do something different. I'm a bit tired of it. I think I probably just should have taken 12 months off and had a rest.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it really was, because we were just so busy there for about 2 years, just full on. Just, a bit tired.
Yes. And did you go into the wilderness period, or did you just?
What did I do? Probably 6 months later, Hamish and I started making the Great Unwashed album. We formed a band called the Great Unwashed, and we made an album and an EP. So had a bit of a rest and then started doing that.
Yes. And then how did the band sort of then come back together again? What was the reason for that?
Robert, the bass player in the Clean, his band, the Bats, were playing in London. I was on holiday in London, and Hamish was living in New York at the time. And the promoter just said, hey, why don't the Clean to get together? Why don't you do a gig? So we supported the Bats. And that was the beginning of it, actually.
Blimey. So
actually, Jeff Travis came to that show and he offered it, I think, was it that show? We came back another year later, didn't we? No, it wasn't that show. Anyway, so after doing that, we realised we could carry on doing this as a part-time thing, and we went back and toured Europe and America about a year later. And Jeff Travis came to one of those shows from Rough Trade, and he offered us a deal, so we ended up making an album for Rough Trade. And, we just carried on making records as a part-time thing, really, a creative part-time project, yeah.
Right. There you go. So it was kind of a moment.
Because I've been busy making solo records and doing other side projects. And Robert, he's had the Bats, and Hamish had his thing, the Mad Scene. So we were all doing other things.
Yeah. God, that's amazing, actually. And with a lot of kind of bands from New Zealand and actually, strangely, Australia, they often sort of relocated to the UK for a sort of a period of time, living in Scotland. Were you ever tempted yourself to sort of relocate to either, I don't know?
Not really. I mean, later on, I'm denied about possibly doing that in America, but I had friends who definitely tried that. I mean, the Chills went over there and gave that a go.
Yes.
And, who else? Probably a handful of others, but no, not really. I wanted to do everything from New Zealand, really.
Yes.
I didn't want to go down that. I saw other bands go to like Australia and just sort of disappear, really.
True.
But, yeah.
That is so.
But
so
the Chills did made a pretty good go of it. They did end up signing to the Slash and Warner Brothers and all that sort of stuff. They did quite well, really. But it's hard yakka, all that.
Yes. So
you're in a foreign country trying to break into a music scene which is actually very foreign to you, and you're foreign to it. So pretty tough.
It would be very, actually. Did you? So with the Rough Trade record that you brought out, was that titled Vehicle? Was this the one?
Yes.
Right. And was that all written and recorded in the UK?
It was all recorded in London, yes, over 4 days, I think. Yes. And we wrote that just before the tour. We wrote that album in 10 days, actually. And then we went on this tour, and then at the end of the tour, we made that record. Yeah.
God. And then, so did you tour that in the UK with as well?
Yes, we did go back. Yeah, we went back again and toured it. Yeah, mainly through Europe.
And was there any particular country that sort of took you to their heart? Because I know with talking to people, Germany loved you, did they?
And people would say, "Oh, you should have been here." Like, of course, they always say that you should have been here 5 years ago. You were huge. It's like, well, okay, but no, Germany. We'd go to Germany and tour for a month and sell out medium-sized clubs and have a great time.
God, and did you play in Berlin as well?
Yes, a couple of times, pre-wall and after the wall came down. Yeah.
Yes, that's because there was this new book that's come out, isn't it? The Clean, and there's some really beautiful and evocative photographs of the band. All through your history.
They found some great photographs, some photographs I'd never seen actually.
And I have to say, there is some sort of lovely ones of you, sort of in Germany, in Scotland, in the UK, and stuff like that. Like
yes, I know. We always had so much fun on those tours.
Yes, I must admit.
Coming from New Zealand, you can imagine. I mean, it's quite a different experience for like maybe an English band starting out in London, but to start out down here in Dunedin, and then one day you're in London playing music, it's quite a jump.
Yeah,
and quite amazed, really, to be able to get that far.
I would imagine, actually. Did you, sure. I mean, at that sort of stage where, one decade finishes and another one starts, and at that point, 4AD were bringing out people like the Pixies and Throwing Muses. You had Sub Pop, who brought out Tad and Nirvana. And then, that kind of period, we had a lot of kind of bands like, I don't know, My Bloody Valentine, Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine. There was a lot of kind of shoegaze, thrash sounds coming out. What was it like for you with the Clean, sort of wondering how to follow up Vehicle with your next kind of album?
We never took much notice of trends or passing trends like that at all. We just did our own thing, really. But, I mean, sure, sometimes we'd go in with a preconceived idea about how one album could be approached, but we didn't take too much notice of stuff like that. Certainly always, checking music out. And I mean, I really like Nirvana as an example, but yeah.
Yes. And then when you brought out modern rock, was there a change in the lineup at this stage?
No, but we did have a guest musician who played on a lot of that record, Alan Starrett. But no, it's always been the three of us, really.
Yes. God. And what was the atmosphere like with the band at that stage?
Really excellent, because it was so exciting to be back together and making music again, and it was sort of happening kind of easy for us. So it all went so smoothly, and there was probably always a bit of regret there that we split, for amongst all of us. So just a really good vibe generally, yeah.
Yes, God, that is tricky, because the 90s was quite weird. We had Britpop. America had the sort of the grunge scene sort of developing quite a lot. So, there was kind of a tricky time, wasn't it?
The grunge thing really was huge here. It really was. I mean, Britpop, sure, all that stuff came through, but the grunge thing really was huge here, like everywhere else. And I just made my first solo album, which is it's almost, I wouldn't call it pastoral, but it's an acoustic pop album, really. And I was pretty happy about it. And virtually the month it came out, Nirvana's Nevermind came out. And it was like, oopsie daisy. Oopsie daisy, never mind.
Yes. So you were really prolific at this stage, weren't you? Because you brought out Here Comes the Cars, then Sugar Mouth. And yes, both on Flying Nun Records. When you were recording or writing them, did you sort of think, this is okay, this is my solo project, I'm not writing for the band? What was that process like?
Oh, well, the first one was definitely like that. I'm trying to get away from the Clean, which is why it's sort of an acoustic pop album, really. I suppose. Deliberate attempt to move away from that sound. But, I mean, after that, it was just trying to write good music, really. Not overthinking it too much. It's quite hard to write good music or good songs.
I would imagine, actually. How did you go about sort of writing? Did you sort of come up with lyrics? Did you come up with a melody?
Yeah, for anything. Could be anything, really. It could be a lyric, it could be just a riff, it could be two notes, it could be anything, really.
Yes.
Once someone put a tape on, a cassette tape, and it played something backwards, and I wrote a song over that. So it could come from anywhere. Yeah.
I could imagine, actually. So when Unknown Country came together, was this an album at that stage? Were you sort of working as a unit? Did you sort of all sort of come up with ideas, or was it mostly just individual?
By that stage, we're pretty much just jamming in the studio and trying to come up with stuff. And that album in particular, I don't know if it was a good idea or not, we decided to make all the music first and we'd come up with lyric and vocal ideas later. And that's maybe one of my least favourite records, actually, but I love some of it. But yeah, you could call it an experimental record. I don't know what it is, really. It's all over the place.
Yes. Well, I mean, everyone has to have a go sometime, don't they?
Oh, yeah, totally. Absolutely. Well, I mean, that's the lovely thing. We were under no pressure. The only pressure we had was our own pressure, so.
Yes. Well, then, and sort of that period, I mean, I always find decades seem to bookmark a scene. What was it like sort of getting into 2000? And because this was the next album, Getaway, this was it Matador Records at this stage?
Someone did it over there. Can't remember now. A few labels have done those records over there. I can't quite remember. Yeah. What album was that?
Getaway.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. We made that here in New Zealand. That was a Flying Nun record, I think. Yeah.
Right.
But by this stage, we're funding our own recordings anyway, so. And we recorded that one, recorded that one touring New Zealand, basically. We weren't planning on making a record. We were just going to do a tour. And, ended up making a record.
Yes, because in the book, there's a phenomenal photograph of 9/11, isn't it? The Twin Towers.
Yes.
Exploding behind you at that stage. Had you just flown into New York at that point?
Bob and I flew in the night before. Hamish was living there at the time. That's the roof of his apartment building. So, Bob and I flew in the night before, and we woke up the next morning reasonably early in the morning. Hamish banging on our hotel room door, get up. Something amazing happened. Something amazing's happened. Look out your window. Looked out the window, went, fuck. Trouble.
Yes.
Got trouble.
It was, yes. Well, luckily the wind seemed to be blowing in the opposite direction.
No, it was everywhere, that dust. Yeah. I hate to think what we were breathing in.
Well, I know. We
did end up wearing masks for a few days, but I don't know. There's a lot of asbestos in the air, I think.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Very incredibly strange things. I mean, it's something that really sticks out. I mean, they locked off the whole bottom half of that area. You couldn't go, to Hamish's place unless you, were a resident. So you could walk up Broadway, early in the evening, and it just was empty. Just really apocalyptical, weird fucking scenes, and the air just full of dust. And, you're in just weird images from that whole experience. Whoa.
Yes, I know. The political kind of, fallout of that was quite horrendous. Actually.
Yeah, the world's never been the same, really.
No. So after Getaway, there was quite a big, sort of big gap with the band. Was it the case that you were all feeling like you just needed space and to have a break?
Probably all pretty busy. It was really hard to manage the clean with the bats and what I was doing, and also what Hamish was doing. Quite hard to manage all that. So can't quite remember what we were doing. What was the next album after that? Was it Mr. Pop? Was it?
I think there's quite a gap, and then it is Mr. Pop actually in 2009. Had you really sort of made your home in Dunedin at this? All through your sort of...
Hamish had he lived in New Zealand for about 30 years, I think.
Yeah. So were you still doing solo projects at this stage as well?
Yes, I was still making solo records, yeah. I've never stopped doing that, really.
No, well, quite, absolutely. And then Mr. Pop came out. Was this kind
Yes,
of
I think
your...
one of the reasons for that gap is that we children. Bob had kids, and also Hamish had a young child, so that slowed things down a bit.
Yeah. Had you, I mean, sort of seeing this book, that has just come out on the clean, did it sort of make you sort of appreciate what you'd done as a band, more than you had done without seeing it sort of documented so beautifully?
Yeah, perhaps a little bit. Yeah, I think so.
I know.
Um, it's hard to see. I mean, I don't really see both sides of the argument, but it's all very positive, put it that way. There's not a
Yes.
lot of critiquing in there, but no, it definitely has made me appreciate it. Just generally, as I've got older, I've appreciated it a little bit more. And with the book, it just adds to it, really.
Yes.
It's something that people liked, and they still care about it. It's pretty amazing.
Because you've done, there was quite a few kind of solo albums throughout the years with Frozen Orange, The Far Now. I mean, what are you sort of working on at the moment?
Um, I've just pretty much finished another record actually, but it won't be out till February.
Right.
um, yeah, but the other thing I've been working on quite a lot is the clean reissues, like remastering old clean records for vinyl reissues. So I've been doing a lot of that the last few years.
Do you have a studio in your own place at the moment, or do you
Yes,
have
I
to?
have a home studio, and the city itself has two good studios here, and yeah, I have a good home studio. I do a lot of work here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you sort of indulged and sort of seen films on? There was the Chills had one, didn't they? And also, was it Shane P. Carter as well? Also had a,
Mhm.
a film. What did you sort of? Did you feel quite inspired or intrigued with their kind of life story?
I think I'm a bit too close to it to really, actually enjoy those documentaries, perhaps. Or the other thing I have a problem with rock documentaries in general, the whole talking heads thing. I'm just so over that, and I'm not sure how else you can do it, but there are other ways of doing it, of course. So yeah, I'm very hypercritical of rock documentaries. So I had mixed feelings about both actually. The one with the Chills, I said to this tomato way early on, and he told me which way it was going to go, that they had a slant for the whole thing. We're very early on. And I did say to him, just forget about all that stuff and tell the story of the Chills and all this, other doom and gloom stuff. Because, I mean, for me, that whole period was just such a joyous, golden sort of period. And I just had nothing but great memories from it. And the thing I got off the Chills thing was a bit of a bummer. I mean, life is a bum. I mean,
Yes.
and you crap out. But I mean, I thought the movie was a bit of a bummer, actually. So I was a bit disappointed. But, I told Martin that, and he was cool, you know.
Yeah. Did you see the one on David Bowie? There was somebody who's kind of, I don't know, he took it up to
Yes,
some
that's
new.
fantastic.
This is the one, was it Morgan, somebody who did it?
That rings a bell. I'm Midnight Daydream, right?
Yes, that one.
That's fantastic.
So you prefer that type of
Well, I don't know
present?
about that type, but that's an example of, you don't have to do the usual thing. It's a very good example. I don't know how I would go about it. We're in the middle of trying to do that at the moment, believe it or not. But it's interesting you bring all this up because these are some of the documentaries we've been talking about. The Bowie one in particular is a very good example of what you can do.
Yeah, because it
First time I saw it, I was a bit taken aback because I was expecting, the story. And the second time I saw it, I went, no, that's a work of genius.
I agree, and actually, if you get a chance, there's a very good interview with the director who slightly
Oh,
bite.
really?
Yeah, I'll send you a link to it because he kind of said, look, we've seen kind of we've heard all the talking heads of Earl Slick
Yes.
and Garson. We don't need to hear
Yeah.
any of that because we've heard it, and
We
you as a
know it.
viewer will know a lot of the story. You'll bring that to the film. I don't need to repeat those things. You know
Yeah.
those things. And I thought, yeah, I just never want to hear Mike Garson ever say anything about David Bowie again. I have got nothing against him, but he's just,
That is such a perfect thing to say. That's just perfect. I mean, that's exactly my viewpoint. We
and
know
if
the
you,
stories. We don't need those stories. We don't need Bono in there. We don't need Thurston Moore in there. The usual, just fuck off.
yeah, actually, I completely agree because there's a couple where I just think if there's a member of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, I just think, because I think there was going to be one on Sparks, but they were just before it hardly started. You just got all these people saying how brilliant Sparks was, and I thought, well, I want to be. It's up to me what I think. I don't want them to be already telling me. I'd rather someone say, they're a bit crap, really, but they did do some quite good stuff, and I'd be like, oh, that's quite interesting, rather than they're just genius. Should we just start at that? And it's like, no, I'd rather wait and see how I feel. So I loved the Bowie one because I went to the cinema to see it, and I was just immersed in it, and then bought the DVD and was immersed in that, but on a smaller scale. And I just thought, yeah, but I will send you the clip of the director getting quite irritated about some of the questions and snapping at the answers. And he said, I took it up to this point because, that's when he met Aman and, he'd sort of had got another step in his life, but he didn't want to do the usual stuff. And I was kind of fascinated, and if it had been done,
It's a very difficult thing to do. Make it a documentary. Very difficult, I think. Anyway.
yes. Well, I just done an interview with a member of the Lunatics, and again, that was kind of quite interesting because, the film came out, the book had come out a few years ago. Then there's the film, and it was, quite interesting in places. I thought it was interesting. So So just going.
Touchstone for a creative documentary is Dylan's Eat the Document.
What was that?
Bob Dylan's Eat the Document documentary. That's another great documentary as far as talking heads and making sense goes. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, bro. Carry on.
No, that's absolutely fine. So you've got a film about the clean in the pipeline.
Yes, well, a film's been filming for about the last 15 years, actually, and we always talking about how we're going to pull it all together, and we're going to try for the non talk. Well, I don't know what it is. We're still looking at it that way.
Right.
We have an enormous amount of footage and stuff. It's just what do you do with it and how do you put it together without it being so cliched and boring?
Yeah, well, it will be fascinating. It will be, but it's got to be done, hasn't it? Really, as well.
Well, I'm not sure actually. The good thing about it is that it's a really wonderful archive, and even if nothing ever comes of it, there's a great archive there for people to go and check out and look at. So at worst, that'll be the best thing about it. Yeah.
And the thing, what also on the book, and one thing that I've been really impressed with, and it's the same with America. Photography, there was a lot of very good pictures of the band. That's something that I think in the UK during the punk period in the 80s especially, there was very little really good photographs of a lot of these kind of indie clubs and audiences and little grubby venues. I mean, there's some, but it's not, I don't think it's that brilliant. But you've managed to capture quite a lot with the clean. Did you have a very good, solid crew around you who were creative and was snapping
We
away?
had 2 or 3 friends who were very keen photographers, and one was a cinematographer too in the end. But yes, we had a lot of creative types around us. I mean, we attracted them, and we were attracted to them as well. Attracted to each other, creative types. So yeah, there were a lot of people around.
You just
A lot of photographers, sure. I mean, lifetime friend Craig McNabb, who's still taking photographs. Yeah, he took a lot of photographs of us. Yeah.
Yes. And have you been sort of quite proud to be part of that scene from New Zealand that captures the kind of 80s?
It's really it's lovely to think we might have made a difference in a good way in some ways. We weren't just a band,
The sense of community.
We really were just a band. We were just a band trying to make it on our own terms. We were as ambitious as anybody, but we wanted to do it on our own terms. So that's how we went about everything, really.
Well,
And
yes.
but that was way before anyone talked about things like alternative music or Dunedin sound or or independent labels and all that sort of stuff. So we were just another band, really.
Well, yeah, but there was a sense of community, a tribal community within seeing,
Well, as someone says, the whole Dunedin thing, you can trace it back to probably the mid '70s to about like 10 people, 10 friends, as you can do with most scenes. Go back to about 5 or 10 people where it all really sort of starts to gel from. But and it was very much like that with the Dunedin thing.
yes. And when you look at your back catalogue, is there any particular period that you're most fondest with?
Well, I love the early classic stuff, of course. Um, I'm really fond of Vehicle because it's just got such a cool sound, and it's the band just hammering out the songs really without thinking. Um, yeah, those two spring to mind. That lot springs to mind.
Yeah. And do you have much in the archives of both your solo stuff and the band that's still to be potentially reissued or released?
The only thing left just to clean really is we're talking about maybe doing some kind of box set of live stuff that we've collected over the years, and there's a lot of that. So there might be that. With the solo stuff, I just signed all my back catalogue over to Merge in America, actually. So we'll put a few of those out on vinyl and,
Right.
yeah, just carry on doing stuff like that, reissuing.
Yes. My God, that's quite groovy, actually. Well, look, thank you ever so much for your time, David. This
Oh,
has
yeah,
been
lovely talking to you. So
no,
thank
it's
you.
been good to sort of hear your story, and yes, it's lovely to sort of I don't know. It's a nice indulgence as one gets older to be able to sort of listen and hear a band's
Totally.
a back catalogue and sort of I don't know pick away at different bits and I don't know. There's the sense of the passing of time gives it a different vibe as well, which is quite
It really
interesting.
does. It really
Um,
does. Well, I love talking about music, and yeah, it was fun. Thank
Yes.
you.
I haven't heard the latest Rolling Stones single, which I think they've released for Record Stall Day or whatever, because it's been hard to hear to get hold of. Have you heard it?
All I've heard is the opening riff. I think that everyone else has heard. The
Mm.
last album I did try and play all the way. I don't think I got all the way through it. Did you listen to their last one?
No, something Diamonds, Dagenham
Yeah, I got
Diamonds.
about 2/3 of the way, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Really, I just wish they'd just, if anything, just stop or just pick up acoustic guitars and go make an acoustic album. Stop with this posturing.
I know this would be quite
The poor
good.
old things.
I know.
Anyway, I'm sure they're enjoying themselves.
Yes, well, and just extraordinary that there's so many. They're still around. But I do, I don't know if I know we just mentioned about rock documentaries. There was quite an interesting one I just saw as well on Paul McCartney, Man on the Run, which was quite.
Yes, I'd like to see that. I just watched one on his Lost Space. That was, funnily enough, thought I got an hour and a half of this. It was actually strangely compelling.
I know it was strange, but the funny thing that happened because I thought, oh, I can just watch these things just happily. I mean, it's. I don't afterwards think that was a waste of my life. I just find it an interesting. But the one thing
Yeah.
that's come out of that is members of Hawkwind and fans are absolutely horrified of being implemented, and I just think just don't take yourself so seriously. You lived opposite. I mean, you had
Yeah,
some dodgy members, around you. I mean, there
it's a
was
great story.
and it just made a little bit of a story. But they're horrified. They're sort of like, oh my God, how could we be implemented in this? And it's
That's
like,
hilarious. That's hilarious. When that story started to unfold in the documentary, I thought, oh my God, it was Lemmy, wasn't it?
it was Lemmy, I know.
Lemmy!
And yes,
Oh,
he
dear.
loved the Beatles. I remember there was
He did.
a film of Lemmy going into a record shop buying this box set. Yeah, they've been very touchy about that film, but I hardly noticed it. I just thought, oh yeah, that's an interesting thing. But it was a little bit. I don't know if you used to watch it, Scooby Doo.
Yes.
where they kind of, this guy suddenly said it was my dad. It was like, oh my God, he his mate that he worked with, had sort of kept pestering him, but he obviously knew but couldn't say. Well, actually, I do know what happened to it. It was my dad nicked it. So and then it all comes out. I don't know. It's a nice story.
Yeah, it's a strange story, very strange.
But I will also remember to send you this.
Oh, please do.
Interview with Morgan, who did the Bowie one, because I think you'll just be intrigued by it, and I think you'll also like his vibe with it as well. Which when you hear it, you'll go, oh, "That's interesting." Anyway, look, have a lovely day, and thank you ever so much, David.
Thank you, David.
Good luck on all the projects.
I enjoyed that. Cheers, buddy. You have a good evening.
You too. Bye. And that was me in conversation with David Kilgour from The Clean. This has been the C86 Show. This is David Eastaugh. Have a great week. Stay safe.